In 1996, Pokémon Red and Blue were released by the game developer Game Freak. Those games went on to create a legacy unthought of by any other video game, founding a game series that would become the most grossing franchise in the world. Between a trading card game, marketable plushies, and countless mobile games, Pokémon made an imprint in not just the gaming industry, but everything else as well. But finally, after 2.5 decades, Game Freak gave up releasing the same game with a different title every year, and released their second game, Pokémon Legends Arceus. The biggest problem that I have with this game, aside from like 20 other problems, is that it's not Breath of the Wild. When you first boot up the game, be ready to go through one heck of a headache. The game will keep tempting you with massive areas where you can go anywhere you like and catch a bunch of Pokemon, but not so fast. Did you really think we would let you run free without at least 2 hours of tutorial? Haha, how gullible. This is still a Pokemon game. You can't escape it. Finally, after proving you're good enough to run around and throw balls without having your hand held, they release you into the world, which is breathtaking. Genuinely, running through the first area, where it was all so green and there were mountains and I could go pretty much everywhere I wanted, brought me back to the good old days, back on Christmas 2018, playing Breath of the Wild for the first time. An incredible sense of exploration and wonder. Anything could happen. Unfortunately, this feeling did not remain. There were a few things that broke the immersion. Unlike Breath of the Wild, Arceus is not an open world. Its map is actually several very large open areas, and whenever you want to go from, say, the marsh to the mountains, you've got to go back to camp, talk to the professor, and go through a whole statistics reel. Finally, he will let you return to the main hub, and from there you have to choose your new location. This felt wrong. The game seemed to be made for an open world experience, and it shouldn't have been that hard to integrate it. But instead, every time you want to try a different location, you've got to go through a whole process. The story is incredibly uninspired. Even though half of my current playtime was just playing through the main story, there really was nothing that stood out. Pokemon is known for usually pretty weak stories, but this felt particularly bad. And to make it even worse, this new format could have opened some amazing new storytelling opportunities, but it just isn't taken advantage of. I can barely remember what happened along the way. The only reason I really went through it was to get new biomes, which would only unlock as you made your way through the story. Even when they tried to be unconventional with the storytelling, it just felt forced. Near the end of the game, you get booted from the Survey Corps, the team that you've been helping study Pokemon, out of nowhere. This might have been a really good plot twist, except that it just felt so forced. After all the things you had done for the team that they were literally too scared to do, they kick you off and expel you from all civilization just like that. To me, it felt like a ridiculous jump and tainted my experience with the story. That being said, the game isn't all bad. The ball throwing based gameplay is truly great. This is, if anything, the hook of the game. In every other Pokemon game, this is how catching a Pokemon would take place. Walking through the tall grass, crazy flashing lights, text announcing the Pokemon you've encountered. The Pokemon does a 3-second roar, select your Pokeballs, choose to use it, text stating you threw the Pokeball, an animation of you throwing the Pokeball, followed by an animation of the Pokemon being caught. Lots more text and screens about the Pokemon you caught. In old games, catching a Pokemon would take a minute minimum, but often even longer. In Legends Arceus, catching a Pokemon takes like 0 seconds. It all happens in real time and any relevant info is displayed on the side of the screen, no longer interrupting your journey. This is how Pokemon catching should have been done years ago. In previous games, catching a Pokemon was a slog, and I would never do it unless I really needed to or wanted to. Now there's no reason to not. You can just be running around, you see a Pokemon, throw a ball, and move on. There's no interruptions, there's no time loss. This truly is the greatest thing that came out of Arceus, and if Gen 9 goes back to the old format, I have no interest. It will just feel gross, knowing what we should have had. Knowing the Pokemon Company, however, there is a decently high chance that they will do exactly that. The battle format in this game is basically the same as it's always been, except now it's streamlined to near perfection. Battling doesn't feel like an obstacle anymore because you don't have to sit through 10 minutes of text and animations for every minute you play. It's fast, most battles are resolved in one attack, and then you're back on your journey. Battles also aren't forced like they are in older games. There are no random encounters, so you choose if you want to battle a Pokemon or not. There are a few trainer battles required throughout the story, but nowhere near as many as there are in the old games. This makes battling feel so fresh because it's optional. Battle if you want, or don't if you don't want to. Let's go back to those graphics I touched on earlier though, because there's a bit to say about them. When I first booted up the game, I was floored. It looked so good. I've always been a big fan of how cell shading looks, and it gives off real Breath of the Wild vibe. And truly, my first journey through the first area was given so much more excitement by the bright and colorful environment. Unfortunately, it only takes a few hours of playing to notice how unpolished the graphics really are. Many locations just look hideous, and the grass especially will just inexplicably have seizures whenever I'm in a battle. And don't even get me started on the caves. Oh gosh, the caves. The caves of this game make me wonder if this game was even playtested at all. Like, did someone really look at the gameplay in the caves and say, yeah, that looks pretty good, I don't see any issues? The graphical issues are never something you stop seeing. Every time they pop up, they force you to recognize their ugliness and accept how close they were to perfection and how miserably they dropped the ball, pun intended. A relatively small thing that I guess was cool at first, but felt really repetitive after a few hours, is that there are almost no original characters. Since the game is set a few hundred years before the other Pokemon games, there are a lot of characters that are obviously ancestors of characters that we already know. This was cool for a while with Male Cyrus and Femboy Cynthia, but I kid you not, there are like 2 truly original characters in the whole game. Everyone is just a remake of an old character. We've got Child Clay and Buff Rowan and Chef/Ninja Wally. It's just everyone. It loses the, oh wow, I know that person aspect after a while and becomes, oh wow, they really crammed the fan service in, huh? An experience similar to watching any modern Star Wars content. If you're not a Pokemon fan, I wouldn't recommend Pokemon Legends Arceus. I would rather suggest any of the dozens of other real open world games, such as Breath of the Wild, Horizon Forbidden West, or Elden Ring. These are all fantastic games that look beautiful and are truly open. But if you are a Pokemon fan, I think that you will get at least some enjoyment from this game. This is, I hope, a large step towards what a Pokemon experience always should be. Open, streamlined, and epic. I don't think that I can play another linear, slow, text-filled Pokemon game again. It would just make me upset at Game Freak for wasting a game and not making it in the Arceus style. And I hope that they continue to make Legends games, reimaginings of old generations to restore their light. And honestly, Zygarde's been around since 2013. He deserves his own game at this point. So, here's to Pokemon Legends, Zygarde, in 2025.